Every year, thousands of people report encounters with the unexplainable shadows that move on their own, whispers in the dead of night, and strange footprints that appear without a trace of an owner. What if I told you some of these aren't just legends or urban myths? What if something ancient and unseen is still watching us, testing us in ways we can barely understand? Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be truly alone, yet never really alone? Tonight, we're diving deep into real stories that will make you question the safety of your own home and the secrets lurking just beyond the trees. Stay with me until the end, because every detail in these tales will chill you to your core, and maybe even change the way you see the world forever. You know, there's something about a true scary story that gets under our skin in a way no fictional tale ever can. Maybe it's because it taps into that very real fear, the fear that what we're about to hear actually happened to someone, somewhere, just like us. I've always been drawn to stories like that, the kind that make you glance over your shoulder when the lights flicker, or hesitate before walking down a dark hallway. It's not just about the chills or the jump scares. True scary stories remind us of the unknown lurking just beyond our everyday lives. They connect us to the mysteries of this world and things we can't explain, and maybe never will. And I think that's why so many of us keep coming back for more. Because deep down, we want to understand those fears, confront them, and maybe even find some meaning in them. Personally, I've had moments where I felt something watching me, or heard sounds that made my heart race for no clear reason. It's those moments that make these stories more than just entertainment. They become part of our shared experience, something that binds us together in the face of the unexplained. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey through some of the most unsettling true stories I've come across. Stories sent in by people just like you, real encounters that defy logic and reason. So, get comfortable, keep your lights just a little dimmed, and prepare yourself. Because what you're about to hear might just make you question what you thought you knew about fear. And speaking of fear, let's start with a story that takes us deep into the woods, where an old cabin holds secrets that no one should have to face alone. Imagine inheriting an old cabin deep in the woods, a place where the air smells like pine and smoke, and the silence feels almost alive. That's exactly what happened to one person who, after finishing their military service, found themselves alone in a remote cabin their grandfather left behind. At first, it seemed like a dream come true, a peaceful retreat away from the noise of the city. But soon, things started to feel different. Inside the cabin, hidden behind loose boards, was an old notebook filled with strange scribbles and hand-drawn maps. Most puzzling was a name that kept appearing: Kaja, something the grandfather called the Walker. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't a ghost in the usual sense. It was something else, something that left tapping sounds on the walls and footsteps in the night. What really stood out was the grandfather's strange advice: light a few candles before sleep. According to him, this mysterious presence wasn't afraid of the light. It appreciated it, as if by lighting those candles, you were offering a kind of respect, a silent pact that kept the peace. I find that idea haunting and oddly comforting at the same time. It's like acknowledging the unknown instead of fighting it, a gesture of coexistence rather than confrontation. And isn't that what we often forget when we're scared? To accept that some things are beyond our control, but maybe, with respect, we can live alongside them. But of course, it wasn't easy. The candlelight flickered against strange shadows, eerie sounds crept through the night, and inexplicable footprints appeared outside, long, thin, and almost too human to be natural. And then there were the mysterious symbols left on the porch: a smooth stone carved with a single line, replaced mysteriously by a bent twig shaped like a triangle. Little signs that made the silence feel heavier, as if the forest itself was watching and waiting. For anyone who's ever felt that prickling sensation of being watched, the kind that makes your skin crawl, this story hits home. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't monsters or ghosts. They're the quiet, persistent unknowns that slip just beyond our vision. Now, as much as this tale feels like something out of a folk legend, it's grounded in real experience, raw, unsettling, and deeply personal. It's the kind of story that makes you wonder about the line between reality and myth, and whether respecting the darkness is the only way to survive it. And speaking of darkness that creeps closer than we expect, our next story takes us into the mind of someone caught in a dangerous obsession. A chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters wear human faces. Now, this next story takes us from the eerie woods to a very different kind of darkness, one that lives inside the mind. It's about a young person who crossed paths with someone obsessed, not just with true crime, but with one of the most notorious serial killers in history, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. At first, it seemed like harmless fascination. You know how some people collect horror movies or dive into mystery novels, but this was different. This girl, let's call her Yubi, wasn't just a fan, she was consumed by the darkness. Her walls were plastered with photos, crime scene images, and pages of notes about Ramirez, like a twisted shrine. It's hard to put into words the kind of fear that comes from realizing someone sees violence as something beautiful, even romantic. When Yubi pulled out a box cutter, not to hurt herself, but to toy with the idea of hurting someone else, it stops being just a story. It becomes real danger. I think this story hits close to home because it reminds us how complex human fascination with evil can be. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's empathy twisted into obsession. And sometimes it's a cry for help, hidden beneath something far darker. What chills me the most is how close the narrator came to becoming a victim. The subtle signs were there, the strange questions, the quiet intensity, the fixation, but they're easy to overlook until it's almost too late. It makes me wonder how many of us have encountered that unsettling feeling, that gut instinct telling us something's off, but we convince ourselves to ignore it because it's uncomfortable, or because we want to be kind. This story is a harsh reminder. Trust your instincts. Sometimes, saving yourself starts with listening to that small, quiet voice inside. And while Yubi's story ended with her arrest, and hopefully help for everyone involved, it leaves us with a lingering question. How do we protect ourselves and others from those dark obsessions before they turn deadly? As unsettling as that is, it also reminds us of the different faces fear can take, from unknown creatures in the woods to dangerous people hiding in plain sight. Fear wears many masks. Next up, we're going to step into a quiet little town in Indiana, where an overnight gas station worker had a night he'll never forget, one that shows just how thin the line can be between normal and nightmare. There's something about working the night shift that changes the way you see the world. When the streets are empty and the silence wraps around you like a heavy blanket, even the smallest sound can send your heart racing. That's exactly what happened to someone working alone at a small gas station miles away from the nearest town. It started like any other quiet night, slow and uneventful, the kind where you keep busy just to stay awake. But then, around 2 a.m., the doorbell jingled, except there was nobody there. No customers, no wandering late-night travelers, just an empty store. If you've ever worked alone at night, you know how unsettling that feeling can be. Like the world is playing tricks on you, or maybe something else is watching. Then the lights flickered, just for a split second, but enough to plunge everything into darkness, and then snap it back on. The registers and gas pumps died. The phones lost signal. Trapped in that little store, the night suddenly felt much, much darker. What really sticks with me about this story is the figure outside, a tall man, bloodied hands, standing motionless by the pumps. No car, no explanation. And then the banging started, pounding on the glass, shattering it. Imagine the terror of hearing that and having nowhere to run but into the bathroom, locking the door, listening to footsteps circling, the heavy thuds echoing through the silence. And yet, when the police arrived, it wasn't a robbery, not even a random attack. Something more sinister was at play. The kind of night that leaves scars you can't see. The kind that change how you look at shadows forever. I can't help but feel for anyone who's ever been in that situation, trapped, alone, heart pounding, not knowing if what's outside is human or something far darker. It reminds me how fragile safety can be, and how our instincts to survive kick in at the exact moments we feel most powerless. Stories like this make you appreciate the small comforts: a locked door, a phone signal, the company of another person. But they also remind us that fear doesn't always come from what we see. Sometimes it's the unknown just beyond the glass, waiting for a chance to slip inside. Speaking of the unknown lurking close by, our next story takes us back in time to a childhood memory that blends innocence with terror, where the line between imagination and reality blurs in the darkest corners of the night. There's something profoundly unsettling about the way children experience the world of the unseen. Their innocence makes them both vulnerable and strangely perceptive to things adults often dismiss. I remember hearing a story from someone who, as a child, moved into an old building, a place steeped in history and shadows. One night, after finishing a game and settling in with a nightlight, they saw a silhouette of a man standing at the foot of their bed. No creaking door, no whispering wind, just a pure black shadow, utterly still. What's haunting is not just the figure itself, but the way the light played tricks, casting no reflection or glow on the shape. It was as if it was made from the darkness itself. For me, childhood stories like this tap into a primal fear, the fear of the dark, but more so, the fear of what might be lurking just beyond our sight. Children don't have the filters adults do. They don't rationalize or explain away strange noises or fleeting shapes. They feel it, raw and unfiltered. And then there's the experience of sleep paralysis, a terrifying state where you're awake but unable to move, often accompanied by visions of shadowy figures or glowing eyes. One person shared how, during an episode, they saw a black mist with glowing green eyes staring right at them. Imagine the panic of being trapped in your own body while that presence looms over you, silent but heavy with intent. It's these moments that blur the lines between dreams and reality, between imagination and something else entirely. And it makes me wonder, what if children's tales of ghosts and spirits aren't just stories, but memories of encounters adults have forgotten how to see? Personally, I've always felt there's wisdom in respecting that fear, rather than dismissing it, because sometimes those glimpses into the unseen are warnings, or reminders that the world holds mysteries far beyond our understanding. As eerie as childhood fears are, they're just one face of the unknown. Next, we'll explore encounters with creatures that don't quite fit into the natural world. Being so strange, they challenge everything we think we know about reality. Sometimes, the things that scare us the most aren't shadows or ghosts. They're creatures that seem to come from another world altogether. One person shared an experience from Florida that still sends chills down my spine. While playing a simple game outdoors, they caught sight of something utterly bizarre: a pale, hairless figure, completely naked, moving through the trees. Now, whether it was a human, an animal, or something else, the fear it sparked was very real. That raw, gut-wrenching terror of facing something you can't explain, something that doesn't fit into your understanding of the world. It's moments like these that remind us how fragile our sense of reality truly is. I think what gets me about stories like this isn't just the creature itself. It's how deeply they shake our confidence in what's safe and familiar. Because when you encounter something that defies explanation, your mind races to find reasons, to make sense of it. But sometimes, there are no answers, just a lasting feeling that the world is bigger and far stranger than we realize. Personally, I believe these cryptid encounters tap into a deep human instinct, the need to be alert, to respect the unknown, and to remember that not everything in the dark is meant to be understood. It's both humbling and terrifying. And while some dismiss these stories as fantasy or hallucination, I find that when so many people share similar experiences, it's hard to write them all off. Maybe there are things out there, hidden just beyond our sight, quietly watching, waiting, or simply existing alongside us. But enough about creatures lurking in the shadows. Our final story brings us back to something even closer: the invisible forces that shape our lives and fears in ways we often don't see coming. After hearing all these stories, from eerie cabins deep in the woods to unsettling encounters with people and creatures, I can't help but think about what ties them all together. It's that universal experience of living with fear. Not just the sudden scares or strange noises, but the quiet, persistent feeling that there's more to this world than what meets the eye. We all carry our own fears, some whispered by shadows, others shouted by our own minds. And while fear can freeze us, it can also teach us. It reminds us to be cautious, to trust our instincts, and sometimes to respect the unknown instead of fighting it. Personally, I believe that living alongside fear, rather than running from it, is part of what makes us human. These stories don't just entertain, they connect us. They show us that others have faced the same doubts, the same chill down the spine, the same moments where reality slips and something else slips in. If there's one thing I hope you take away from tonight, it's this: fear isn't the enemy. It's a signal away. Our mind and soul tell us that we're alive, that there are mysteries we're still discovering. And maybe, just maybe, embracing those mysteries instead of fearing them is where the true courage lies. Thank you for sitting with me through these tales. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your own experiences, or even questions, because the unknown feels a little less scary when we face it together. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, subscribe, and share your stories in the comments below. And remember, the next time you feel that chill, don't just turn on the lights. Maybe, just maybe, listen closely to what the darkness is trying to tell you. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep your mind open.